welcome to Sunday Night Football. It's Sunday, evening-ish, around 5 p.m. for the cool kids. And you're noticing a distinct lack of Joe Will. Dude just lost track of time. He's not here. It's not like he had anything to do. He's just, gone. But the show must go on. So, Clack, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Excited that the playoffs started. Depressed that the Vikings aren't in it.
Definitely.
So it's kind of like I've been watching, some of the games. Obviously, the Cowboys game is kind of important to me because I'm a big Kellen Moore fan. So I want to, watch him in the playoffs. But I think that's been mostly as a team without a coach and a GM right now. That's what I've been paying attention to is all the hot candidates, how they did. Brian Dable yesterday made a statement game.
What a game.
But so yeah, let's start with that.
If he doesn't get a head coaching job, something's wrong.
Yeah. So let's start with that. The coaching carousel. I think there are 7 teams now with head coaches. It's 7 or 8. Who do you think goes where? What are some locks in your opinion? I have at least one lock.
I've got one, maybe I've got 2 right now. Dan Quinn to Denver and Brian Dable to Miami. That seems like a almost lock given the Tua to Dable connections.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Miami, there's no way you miss on this, especially when you look at that game last night where, Josh Allen to me is similar to Tua in a way. So, I don't see how if you're Miami, that you don't reach out and give Brian Dable what he wants because he's really done a great job with Josh Allen. And,
yeah,
if Tua has someone who he's used to, that's going to bode well for him in this offense.
I'll throw in one more. I think one lock, in my opinion, is Brian Flores to the Texans. It just makes too much sense. He was a huge Deshaun Watson guy. He was spearheading the push for Miami trading for him. Deshaun Watson's notably come out and said he wants to play for Brian Flores. So I wouldn't be surprised after a whole year of him sitting out, Deshaun Watson comes back and plays next year, barring any legal situations.
Right.
I think Brian Flores gets hired by the Texans, and then Watson comes back and plays for him.
I like it.
Yeah, and then so let's see some other ones. The Raiders. I think they should give Rick. Was it Bacassia? I think is how you pronounce it.
Rich Bacassia.
Rich Bacassia. Yeah, I think they should. He earned a chance, I think, for a year being the full head coach, in my opinion. But if they have a chance to get Harbaugh, they'll probably hire Harbaugh.
Agreed. Or was it y'all or someone else who threw Dabo out there at that job?
Dabo Sweeney?
Yeah, I heard his name thrown out there a long time ago at this job.
That definitely wasn't me. I had not even thought about that. The only college coach besides Harbaugh that I'd heard getting any buzz at all was Matt Campbell from Iowa State, and he's kind of meh to me. I think that he's kind of underperformed with a lot of weapons every year.
Definitely.
When you have Muhammad Ibrahim and all the people that they had, you should be better than.
Lincoln Riley had been thrown out there, but obviously we all know that's not going to happen now that he's literally just taking a job.
Well, and someone like Lincoln Riley too, the Lincoln Rileys, the Nick Sabans, even the Dabos and stuff. You're a literal god where you're at now at this point.
Exactly.
Why would you give that up to go be a mid-tier to maybe pretty good NFL head coach? You've got it completely made. And honestly, they're making a lot of money. They might be making more than most NFL head coaches are. Some of the college jobs get you absolute bag.
So watching this game as a Vikings fan, your 2 top candidates are in this game. As you probably pretty well know, with DeMeco Ryans, former Alabama player, Roll Tide, and Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. If the way this game's going, if 49ers hold on to win, and hold this offense to 7-10 points and dominate this game, does that change your mind?
So a lot of people are very reactionary when it comes to head coaching, especially Vikings fans. I've seen it. I do it too. I don't think it would change my mind because people have to understand that at the end of the day, Kellen Moore can call plays and but it's still Mike McCarthy's team. So
right.
I think people tend to over blame coordinators for everything. I saw it this year, Clint Kubiak got raked through the coals, and maybe rightfully so. His play designs weren't great, but a lot of that was the Mike Zimmer influence as well, wanting to establish the run the ball. In the same way that I think you can see tonight, like Kellen Moore had a lot of creative routes that he's created, like a lot of creative plays and stuff so far. And then like several times, there was one earlier where they like Dak had a guy wide open, and instead he tried to take like a contested shot, and it was an incomplete pass when it could have been like a huge gain. And so at the end of the day, like as a coordinator, as a coordinator, you can only do so much, and I don't think that really, like one game doesn't really worry me. And the reason I like Kellen Moore so much, and I'm so fixated on Kellen Moore, is the dude is 33 years old, has climbed up through the ranks of like a positional coach to an OC to a potential head coaching candidate in like 4 years of coaching. His potential is so high that I would rather swing big and like maybe strike out with like a Kellen Moore than take a Todd Bowles or a like Dan Quinn that's already proven that they're like an okay head coach but never going to be like an elite head coach.
What about Byron Leftwich? I mean,
Byron Leftwich is weird, and he's kind of falls into the same thing as Nathaniel Hackett does for me, where it's very hard to judge an offensive coordinator that has like a top 3 quarterback of all time. Like, they have great plays and their offense is really good, but how much of that is Tom Brady? How much of that is Aaron Rodgers? It's almost impossible to say. So he could be a great head coach. It's just, it worries me a little bit. And then I will say,
it's easy to look good in that system.
Yeah. And then I will say, I like DeMeco Ryans if they're going a defensive route, but my second choice would probably be O'Connell from the Rams, because he's similar to Kellen Moore, and in the past Sean McVay has like gone out of his way to block interviews. He's clearly a very important part of the team. So
right, I agree. And the thing is, one thing you have to remember is when they went to Mike Zimmer, if you're a Vikings fan, Mike Zimmer is a defensive guy. And look what happened last time you went to a defensive guy. Yeah, for the most part, y'all had some great defenses, but offenses where you struggled. So, you still have that great defense. Maybe go somewhere else and get an offensive guy, and hopefully you'll have all the pieces together.
Yeah, so I think my thoughts on that is that it's a very offensive league. It's parroted all the time, but it's true. Like, offense is very important. I know until you get to like the Super Bowl, then defenses are good, but throughout the league and stuff, like offenses are kind of heavily favored. And the last 3 times the Vikings have had a good offense, their offensive coordinator gets poached for another job or like a head coaching position. Like Kevin Stefanski, we had who was it? Oh no, sorry, Kubiak. Gary Kubiak retired. So basically, anytime we have any sort of stability, they leave. So having a offensive head coach that can't get poached like that is huge. And so in my mind, instead of getting a defensive first guy, I'd rather get an offensive first guy and then just hire a good defensive coordinator. Like Vic Fangio would be a perfect defensive coordinator in my mind. Like,
there's no way he doesn't land on his feet. I think he lands on his feet.
Yeah,
pretty easily, because I see him going to Dallas if Dan Quinn takes a Denver job.
I saw a lot of people saying just coming back to the Bears, which I could see as well. He's been there before and knows the systems ins and outs. So what about Eric Bieniemy? Like, he was a hot name like the last year, and he's pretty much popped up on 0 lists. Do you think that fact that the Chiefs were struggling so heavily for a large portion of the year affected that?
It's just weird. Like, I heard yesterday he had one interview total scheduled. And
do you know who it was?
Like, I don't. I did not hear who it was. It's just weird. Like, how, as good as he has been, like, how does he not have any offers at all? Like, is there something in this past, or is there something that the league knows that we don't know, or like nothing? It doesn't make sense to me why the best offense has, like, nobody's calling him.
Yeah, hold on. It looks like it was the Denver Broncos were the first team to interview him this year.
Interesting.
So in division, to me, I think part of it is people. You shouldn't be, but people kind of like Belichick are getting afraid of Andy Reid like disciples. There's not a lot of great Andy Reid disciples out there. And also, like, he's an older guy. He's been in the league for a while now and has never had head coaching experience. Like, and it's the same thing I said with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. When you have Patrick Mahomes, it's easy to mask a lot of your problems that you have as a team. But it's just weird to me. So this is kind of a different topic, but I do want to talk about it. How do you feel about the Rooney Rule?
Can you explain that one to me? I'm not
So,
sure of it.
In 2002, the the Vikings fired Dennis Green, and the Buccaneers fired their coach, and both of them were like very successful black head coaches. They had their first like unsuccessful season in like 10 years, each of them, and they got fired. So basically they did an independent study, and it showed that like minority head coaches are a lot more likely to get fired for the same result. So basically they instituted the Rooney Rule, saying you have to interview at least one minority head coach from an outside position if you have an open coach vacancy. But I get to this point because there was a rumor that Eric Bieniemy got all those interviews last year because of that rule. And you look at like the teams and stuff, like he's a plausible head coaching candidate, but you look at like the list of everyone else's interviews, and they didn't interview anyone else that fits the criteria. So, I mean, I think maybe his value might be a little overstated because a ton of teams interviewed him last year. And, you see it this year with like Todd Bowles, for example. A lot of teams are interviewing Todd Bowles as like their only coach to fit that criteria. And so I don't know. It's just kind of weird to me. And it feels kind of like wrong that there's like a coach every year that's kind of selected as like the guy to get interviewed for every team, but doesn't.
Yeah, I think that to me is a worse look than, originally was. I think to me, I feel like that's like you're just using him for your benefit. And, and it kind of goes on to something I was wanted to address anyway. I've seen, and I'm trying to think how to say this without it sounding wrong, like people like say Brian Flores was fired because he was in the minority. Like, I don't agree with that stuff. Like that specifically, especially like Brian Flores. Brian Flores and Tua did not get along.
Yeah, and
I don't think coaches are. Yeah, I mean, like Brian Flores to me was not a good fit for Miami, and I don't think coaches are. I mean, I firmly do not believe coaches are fired for that reason. Like, I don't get the logic in that because. I mean, like when you have talent like Miami has and you don't win, then yeah, you need to do something, especially when you start off 1-7. But like I don't necessarily agree with the rule because it just gives you an opportunity. It's just like you're just using them for your benefit to move on, so you can hire who you're actually going to hire. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I mean, I
think it's a good sentiment, but like it's not implemented in a way that it actually like, I guess last thing I'll say about this, do you know how many like black head coaches there are in the league right now?
4?
1 after the firing of David Culley and Brian Flores. It's just Mike Tomlin.
Really?
So, yeah. It's just something interesting. So it doesn't seem like it's really accomplishing the goal.
I feel like we're skipping
every
somebody.
Every year like 1 or 2 like coordinators kind of get interviewed a lot, and then there's been plenty of times where it's come out afterwards that like, oh, this is,
I feel like we're skipping somebody.
No, it was Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport tweeted it out after the firing of Culley, and
I mean, the thing is, I don't necessarily disagree with either one of those firings, though.
Yeah,
I mean, the Culley one, yes, to a point, but I think, and if you look back on this, when you think about it, David Culley was fired Thursday, was it? Mm-hmm. David Culley was not fired until they knew Brian Flores was available.
Yeah, so I do think Culley was a reactionary firing because they knew they don't fire him the time they did without already having a guy in mind.
Right. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't disagree with it. I mean, he was in a very bad situation with Deshaun Watson deciding to sit out, but I do think the fact that Deshaun Watson did decide to essentially sit out, that does reflect back on your head coach. So,
well, and it does suck for him too because he was set up like he did about as well as you could do with that roster, right? Like they were expected to be the worst team in the league, and he won 4 games. He kind of overachieved with how poor their talent was, and like having to try out Davis Mills as a starting quarterback and all this. So it's just unfortunate. And also he's an older guy. He's like 66 or 67. Like he's probably never going to get a head coaching job again. But I mean, at least the severance pay is nice. He got like a $20 million or something crazy like that. So,
did you see who else they interviewed though? Who else Houston interviewed?
Yeah, Hines Ward.
Yes,
I didn't even
that's
know he was
interesting.
a head coach somewhere.
He
Like, he
was
was like,
no, he's not. He's the wide receivers coach for Florida Atlantic.
oh my gosh, like that's just, I don't know if that's
Reaching.
just
That's
like looking for press, like, oh hey look, remember this guy? It kind of reminds me of, you ever play Madden, and like if you get far enough into a franchise, like people that retired will come back as head coaches.
I know,
So
like it does it to me. Like I've got like Vince Lombardi. I've had the same thing. Like Vince Lombardi and stuff comes up. So yeah, that's kind of what it's like.
but yeah, I don't know. I think that's just kind of a really weird one, especially because he's not even like the head coach of a college program. He's a positional coach there.
Exactly.
Like someone the Texans head coach that I'm blanking on his name, or sorry, the Cardinals head coach that I'm blanking. Cliff Kingsbury was kind of an underqualified head coach, and he was like at least a head coach that had some success. So I don't know, but I think we've talked about enough about coaches. We should talk about some of the games that happened. So yesterday, the Bengals defeated the Raiders 23-16 for their first playoff win since 1991, 31 years, and they got really close to blowing it too, which is the funny thing. My dad is a lifelong Bengals fan, and when they were up 10 with like 5 minutes to go or 6 minutes ago or whatever, something, he looked at me and was like, "We're going to lose this game." They almost did. They got all the way down to like the
They
goal
did.
line. If they wouldn't have. So my question is, so at the end of the game, right? They get all the way down to the goal line. It's first and goal. There's about 50 seconds left, 40 seconds left, and they spike it on first down. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you needed. I mean, even the announcers, Mike Tirico, or no, not Mike Tirico. Drew Brees said, that's basically what they have to do is spike it so you can have time to kind of figure out what you want to run. You know, if you're constantly go 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 go, you're not even having time to set up a play and figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, they still have ample chances to score from like the 5 yard line. So I mean, if you've got one of the best backs in the league, they never even tried to use him. So I mean, I think they did the right thing in the situation.
It's weird to me because like in hindsight, people love to like rake them over the coals for this. Like in hindsight, yeah, the extra down would have been really nice, but I kind of agree. Like I think having time to set up your next play is better than like just running hurry up the whole time. But and then people also were kind of trash talking Derek Carr. He threw an interception the last play of the game. Like, what was he supposed to do? It's the last play in a playoff game where you lose and go home. Like, he had to force it somewhere. No one was open. So, I mean, yeah, he threw an interception, but he threw it right at his receiver. And the defender just made a play. Like, it was an awful throw at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they really had time. I think even with the spike, they never really had time to even get a good game plan drawn up there. And I mean, Derek Carr balled out yesterday. Honestly, I mean, other than Darren Waller, especially losing bugs, other than Darren Waller, they don't have the best pass catchers. I mean, Hunter Renfrow is okay, but he's not. This guy, some guy, I'm going to be like, oh, thank God we got Hunter Renfrow. We're going to go out and win today. I mean, so I mean, Derek Carr played well. I mean, I don't think that loss had anything to do with him.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that people are like, some people want to move on from Derek Carr. He's a top 50% quarterback, and you look
He's a game manager.
Yeah, but like sometimes he brought them to their first playoffs in however long. And it kind of reminds me of the football team with Kirk Cousins, and maybe the Vikings with Kirk Cousins this year. Who knows? You want to move on to find the next guy, but then you move on, and then you find out like, oh, the guy we had was a lot better than anyone we could replace him with, right? Like we could experience that same thing this year. The football team experienced it when they moved on from Kirk. They haven't had a quarterback since. So it's really hard when you have someone as good as Derek Carr, in my opinion, to move on from him because he's good enough. Like he did, what he did without anyone else to help him. So
Agreed.
So how do you feel about, the Jamar Chase pick in retrospective for the Bengals?
I think that's probably been their biggest asset, well, other than Joey B, has been one of their biggest assets. I feel like it's always important it's always great when you're able to reunite receivers with their quarterbacks. You see it with Jalen Waddle, at Miami. And I think that was in hindsight, was a great draft pick for them. I mean, isn't he their leading receiver?
Wait, what did you say? Sorry. Yeah.
Isn't he? He's their leading receiver. I mean, it was a great pick for them. I mean, it seems like he's always the first target for Joe Burrow. So, yeah, I think getting him back with Joe Burrow was great. And especially with a good receiver quarterbacks coach like Zach Taylor, it seems like it's really paid dividends for them so far.
Yeah, I mean, he set the rookie record for most receiving yards in a season. I was so ready to come out with my asterisk, and be like, oh, he did it in a 17-game season. Justin Jefferson did it last year with only 16, but he did it in his 16th game. So even last year, he would have set the record, which is very impressive.
I hate to admit it, these LSU receivers are pretty good.
These two, and then I think the one the Panthers selected this year, I cannot for the life of me think of his name. Terrence Marshall. Was a little overrated. I think he got into the first round because of the other two, like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. But I don't know. And then Boutte, I wish he was coming to Alabama, but he'll probably be pretty good. He's a monster.
Definitely.
But I don't know. I love to make fun of the Bengals at the time, but Jamar Chase has been nothing short of incredible for them. Honestly, from top to bottom, they might have one of the best receiving rooms in the NFL. I mean, they have him. They have T. Higgins. They have CJ Uzomah has been a pretty good target for them at the tight end spot, and then Tyler Boyd has kind of taken the back seat, but he's a very, very good number 2 or number 3. So,
agreed.
And then, how do you think? Do you think the Bengals can continue this run? Do you think they have any shot of making any more noise, or do you think it was just they played the Raiders?
I think it's going to depend on who they play. Well, are they for sure playing Tennessee?
I think they were the 3 seed, so I think there's a
4. They were 4.
Well, no. So if the Steelers win tonight, then the Steelers play.
Well, Tennessee, Steelers are not going to win tonight.
Yes, by that logic, they're for sure playing Tennessee.
I think their offense can do it. I think one thing that I noticed with them, and I think everybody notices, Josh Jacobs was able to gash their run defense like crazy.
Derrick Henry
imagine if Derrick Henry's back. He's going to absolutely run it all over them. But I think that offense can do it. I'm going to pick the upset.
You're going to pick the Bengals?
I like the Bengals over the Titans.
Honestly, the Titans just haven't super wowed me, and maybe it's because of play style. They have the record to back it up that they're really good. But Ryan Tannehill, in my mind, is a little overrated. And I was very impressed that they were able to keep going without Derrick Henry. But I think they're going to run out of steam sooner or later.
I agree.
But I will say credit to them. They're the top seed in the AFC with all the injuries they've dealt with. AJ Brown and Julio Jones have both been hurt a lot off and on this season. Derrick Henry's been gone. So, it turns out all you need if you want a Bill Belichick coach is you have to hire a former player instead of a former coach under Belichick. So there we go. We got a question. What's your Super Bowl pick?
I'm gonna go. I bet on them to win the Super Bowl, and I'm gonna stick with them. They're probably gonna lose tomorrow, but I'm going with the Rams.
Okay, and over who?
Over Buffalo.
Over Buffalo? Yeah, I think after watching last night. Yeah, and then after watching last night, I think Buffalo has to be my AFC pick. I have not seen a playoff team get dismantled that bad in so long. And so I think I'll take Buffalo to win it all over. I'll take the Bucs. I want to say the Packers, but after watching the last couple of years, every single time they have just one stinker of a game in the playoffs, and it costs them. So until they don't, I can't pick them.
I think that happens next week. I think I'm going a little bold here, but I'm going with 2 upsets next week. I think both of the top seeds fall next week.
Wow. So who are they're playing the Bucs next week then? Or
Packers the Rams will be playing Packers.
Or the Cardinals will be playing the Packers.
Or the Cardinals will be playing.
I think that one is pretty 50-50, honestly.
Well, it's also going to depend on how this one turns out. If right now it's actually turning out to be perfect, is how I said it was going to turn out a few weeks ago. I think if San Francisco holds on right now, San Francisco will be at Green Bay, and then the Rams will be at Tampa, and I definitely could see an upset there. Then you've got the Rams in Green Bay.
Ooh. But yeah, so the Pats versus the Bills last night. We kind of talked about it. Bills won 47-17. I'm sure you saw it, but it was the first perfect game in NFL history. No punts, no field goal attempts, no turnovers. Until the kneel down at the end of the game, there was no negative plays for the Bills, I believe I saw. The only bad thing that happened to them the entire game was they had a blocked extra point. It was so close to perfection. But man, Mac played okay. I mean, he had some. We were talking about it last night, and I think it was Joe that said it. His receivers are just not great, and you compare it to the Bills. They have Stephon Diggs, they have Dawson Knox, Cole Beasley, even. But man, I think the first interception that Mac Jones has kind of epitomized it. He threw an absolute dime 40 yards down the field, and then Micah Hyde just made the catch of his career to intercept it. And that was just kind of how the whole night was.
Yeah, I feel like Mac had, honestly, a decent season for a rookie his first year. I mean, with no receivers, I mean, yeah, I'm impressed with Mac. And of course, I'm going to be impressed. He's my favorite player in the league. But it wasn't. I mean, he was great, honestly, overall for the season. It didn't turn out. But, I mean, how do you expect it to turn out, when your leading receiver is like Nelson Aguilar? I mean, I think you give this team some receivers. I would love to see them get John Mechie, J-Mo, Slade, any former Bama player. We know Bama's WRU, so I'd love to see them get a Bama receiver and add to their rush. I think that would help him out a lot.
I'm not even doing the whole Bill Belichick white receivers joke, but I getting Slade just because him and Mac were roommates, right, in college. They were really good friends. So I could see, it's basically going to be like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, in my opinion. No,
agreed.
Obviously not quite that much. But one thing I was wondering, what happened to Jonnu Smith? I remember him signing with the Patriots, and I was thinking that was going to be a huge Hunter Henry Jonnu Smith combo. Jonnu Smith only had 200 yards on the season, and he played last week. He had one catch for 12 yards, and apparently a rush for -1 yard. So, it's just Hunter Henry played pretty well, I will say, and he managed to not get hurt, which is the big question with him, right? Was whether he could stay healthy for that big contract. But Jonnu Smith he was so good for Tennessee, and he just did nothing this year.
In Atlanta.
Yeah. Wait, he was in. I don't even remember him in Atlanta.
He was in Atlanta. No, he was in Atlanta on the Super Bowl. I may be thinking somebody else. I'm not sure he was on the Super Bowl team.
Let me look this up.
I'm going to look this up.
No, I got you. Jonnu Smith was.
Who am I thinking?
No, he was on the Titans. He got drafted by the Titans. I don't know.
Who was I thinking? There's somebody I'm not thinking.
Anyway, Josh Allen last night had such an incredible game. And, that's why I think that Brian Daboll is an incredible head coaching position candidate. Not just because of the game plan, but because he was the one who's been credited with developing Josh Allen into what he is, right? He is Josh Allen was super raw, and honestly, he was kind of trash his first year. I'm not going to lie. I can't. But ever since then, he's been a potential MVP candidate and been one of the top. He's probably been a top 5 quarterback, in my opinion. He's been so good. And, next week we might see the Bills versus the Chiefs, which I think would be a great game.
Would be epic.
Didn't that game already happen as well this year?
No, it didn't. That was last. Wait. Yes, it did. The Chiefs won.
Yeah. Yeah, the Bills won 38-20 this year. That was when the Chiefs were at their beginning. Yeah. So the Bills won 38-20. The Chiefs were on their slide to start the season.
Yeah, look, they may fall on another slide. I mean, they still I still don't think they've proven themselves.
You don't think so? Even though they had tied for the best record in the AFC?
I mean, they were, but however, I mean, they still had even once they got going, they still had a 34-3 loss to the Titans. They lost to the Bengals.
Yeah.
So they are also, I think, they do kind of benefit from a weak division.
Yeah. I mean, that weak division, though, like, I think I gave Joe crap for saying this. That weak division was one tie away from sending 3 teams to the playoffs. So
that's true. I think the Raiders got what they deserved for making us not have the tie.
Yeah, honestly, they would have won if they had just tied. So.
Yeah, I think the Raiders would have been much better to do that, and then they would have completely changed the landscape. They would not have been playing the Bengals. They would have been playing Kansas City, I believe.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you got to take the game against the Bengals, though, in that case, even though the Bengals did beat the Chiefs.
True.
But I want to talk about the Bucs-Eagles game. But first, we have a message from our partner, Super Draft Prep.
Hey, it's Jacqueline from the CTS Sports Room, coming to you from my car. Because it's Christmas time, and my house is full of people, and I told them I was going grocery shopping, but really, I just needed a break. So I downloaded this new app that we just partnered with. It's Super Draft Pro. It is the future of fantasy sports. And you can play for cash, prizes, and experiences that money can't buy. Like the peace and quiet I'm getting right now. You can play for free, or you can get their non-gambling subscription. Either way, you can still win cash and prizes. If you want more information, my friend Kyle Murray is going to tell you about it.
It's not easy being the fastest quarterback you've never seen. I'll be right back. There's no quicker way to get into DFS. Play Super Draft today and see for yourself.
Super Draft Pro and Caesars Entertainment are bringing you the future of fantasy sports. So, if you want to play like a champion or need a break from the family, download Super Draft Pro today. Play like a champion. Information will be in the link below.
So, thank you to our partners, Super Draft Pro. You guys should go check out the link. I'll actually put it right here on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, it's at the bottom in the description. While we were away for a second, I decided to check my favorite Minnesota Vikings social board, Reddit, the Minnesota Vikings subreddit. And when I was saying that the fans there are super reactionary, I just wanted to see what they're thinking about the Cowboys game. And sure enough, like the top post was talking about how Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore should stay in Texas and they want no part of them. And I don't think people understand that coordinators only impact so much of the game, and especially when you have Dak Prescott like missing throws and making kind of weird plays, like you can't really do anything. Yeah.
I was. This was the first thing I was going to. This was the first thing I was going to bring up when we came back. I'm watching the Cowboys and the Cowboys and 49ers game. I agree. I think you can't be reactionary in this situation, but even like Tony Romo said at the beginning of the game, the 49ers defense has been the best defense in the NFL the last 6 weeks. I think DeMeco Ryans deserves, a shot. Mm-hmm. At Minnesota, I wouldn't necessarily say at Minnesota, but DeMeco Ryans deserves a shot somewhere. The fact that they're holding the best offense. This has been the best offense in the NFL.
Yeah,
they're holding this offense to 7 points, and they're playing great defense. So, it maybe. I don't want to be super reactionary, but
this is reactionary the opposite direction.
Do what?
I said this is reactionary in the opposite direction.
But I will say though, the Cowboys' offense has been stagnant at times. Like it's been up and down. So, are you 100? Are you sure Kellen Moore is your go-to guy, or what would it take? Just out of curiosity, what would it take to change your mind?
I don't know. I think that I'm pretty set in my opinion of just because the offense has gone through struggles, you have to look at their season as a whole. And like you said, they lead the league in yards. They lead the league in points per game. And that's a huge, statement. I think that every coach is going to have bad games. I mean, like Bill Belichick, for example, best coach of all time. He had a really bad game. It happens. You just have to accept that. To me, it's not about necessarily how the Cowboys look per se. It's about the potential of the different picks. And I think that Kellen Moore, being as young as he is, but and how quickly he's been able to learn and adapt and all this stuff, I think that just the potential is there. And like I said, after seeing Mike Zimmer for the last 8 years, like a guy where he's very, exactly what you're going to get. I want to take a swing on a guy, and I'd rather have Kellen Moore for a year or two and him absolutely bomb out than, like I said, than get like Dan Quinn and have him be like middle of the pack team for.
I think there's no way. I think to me, I always sit around and wonder, like when you hire, especially a coach who was just like Dan Quinn was not good in Atlanta, and I think I hate, which is a topic for another day, but I hate the logic that just because a coach went to a Super Bowl, even in some instances won a Super Bowl, that does not make a coach.
Yeah. I mean,
especially look at Mike McCarthy.
That's why I hated the Doug Peterson rumors. We haven't officially requested to interview him, but he was linked a lot I think one team requested to interview him, and he was getting linked to the Vikings a lot. I do not think he impressed me at all, minus the one season he had where his defense was like the best defense in the league and carried them to a Super Bowl.
Right. But I always want to go for someone who's never been a head coach. Like, I think if you've been fired once, you're probably not going to succeed. Has there ever been a coach that was fired somewhere that went on and won a Super Bowl somewhere else?
Yes, actually, the two best coaches in the league, arguably, were both.
Belichick was
with the Browns, right? And then Andy Reid.
Fired as a head coach.
Yeah, and then Andy Reid, didn't he get fired as the Eagles head coach?
I thought Belichick was a defensive coordinator or something for the Browns.
I thought he was the head coach, but I don't know.
He may have been. Andy Reid is the one. That is a big exception. I mean,
yeah.
Still only
obviously
Super Bowl, but true.
He was the head coach of the Browns from 91 to 95.
Okay.
He was the DC of the Giants.
My time.
Yeah, same.
But anyway, where were we?
Oh yeah, we were talking about the Eagles and the shellacking, to use a fun word, that the Bucs gave them. 31-15. Don't let that score deceive you. It was 31-0 in the fourth quarter. Final scores aren't really indicative of the game. Jalen was very rough. I think he had 2 or 3 interceptions.
And
the only
49ers
commentary
just got a pick six.
Oh really? The only commentary that I remember hearing the whole game basically about
not
the
a pick six.
You got to get Devontae involved. And then you just But the Bucs are really good. This is about what I expected. Unfortunately, the Eagles scraped in, but you put up an interesting point earlier before we were live about how you don't think that expanding the playoffs is necessarily a good thing because all these games generally are kind of Cowboys 49ers game is an exception, right? Where they were, but most of the time the top seed wins almost every time, right? And especially 7-2 games. So
agreed. I mean, I think it's pointless. I think the 2 seed deserves. And there's the touchdown for San Francisco. I think the 2 seed deserves a week off as well.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. It is kind of weird when you're the Chiefs this year that have the same record or have to play, but So Tristan Wirfs, though, maybe the best rookie offensive lineman last year, one of the best right tackles in the league this year, got hurt in the game with an ankle injury, and then he came out, and then Bruce Arians put him back in, and he got hurt again. So, do you think it's anything severe? Why would he do that?
Well, you go back to the Antonio Brown situation, which was altogether crazy, but everybody's said, he was forced to play, or the rumor was he was forced to play on an injury, and now Tristan Wirfs says it's the same situation. What gives? I mean, is Bruce Arians basically forcing them to go out there and play. And you were literally dominating the game. Why in the world would you put him back out there? Because he's literally, as Joe Buck said, the best offensive lineman in the football. Why would you put him out there when you're fixing to go up against a really good defense in either the Rams, Cowboys, or Packers, whoever it is actually a great defense? Why would you have him out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just it doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like in his head, like he got the Madden prompt, and it was like risk of re-injury low, and then he put him back in, and he got re-injured, and he's like, ah, dang it. But yeah, I don't know. It's so strange especially because Tristan Wirfs had never missed a game before, right? Like he
Right.
had never been hurt before, and then the one time he gets hurt, they decide to rush it, and now he might be out for the rest of the playoffs. And at the time with the Antonio Brown situation, I thought it was just Antonio Brown being a little, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but he he might have a point. You saw it on live television. There's no denying this now. There's concrete evidence of Bruce Arians just like being like, oh no, it's fine, especially because it's an ankle injury, which is what Antonio Brown had, right? So I don't know. It's just it seems like a really strange decision, and it's kind of go ahead.
If you lose him, I mean, that's crucial. That's, as crazy as it sounds, and I think it's true. Like, offensive line is the last. I mean, Alabama fans, we know this very, very well. Offensive line is the last place you want to struggle. Like, you can get by with a so-so quarterback. You can get by with so-so positions, but offensive line is the last place you want to struggle, because if you don't have an offensive line, you're not going to be doing anything. And losing him, especially when you're going to go up against Aaron Donald or somebody like that, that's a huge loss for them.
Yeah. Well, and the trenches make or break football, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it firsthand too with the Vikings. Like a good quarterback and a bad offensive line, you do not win as many games. Same with like a good defensive line can make up for bad corners and bad secondary, bad linebackers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Tom Brady's Tom Brady. I'm sure he'll be fine. He's one of the quickest to getting the ball out in the league, but it's still just worrying when you have to go from a top tier player to like a replacement level guy. So let's talk a little bit about the game that's going on right now. The Dallas Cowboys and the 49ers. 49ers are winning 23-7. So what do you think about Jimmy G? What's your opinion on him?
Well, I mean, we kind of talked about him and Trey Lance a couple of weeks ago, and I've completely changed my tone. Like, my question is, Jimmy G is fixing to lead into the divisional round. I mean, granted, it's the defense, but I mean, Jimmy G has played very well. He's played better than Dak Prescott. I mean, why did you draft Trey Lance? Like, now I'm like, why the heck did they draft Trey Lance?
I just think that, I don't know. Jimmy G's shown splashes before, right? Like he's been able to string together good games before. He did it with the Patriots when he had to start for Tom Brady during his suspension. He went like 3-0, right? Mm-hmm. So he's always been the guy that can do it over a couple of games. And yeah, when he's getting hot right now, and that's exactly when you need him to. But I think ideally you want a quarterback that can do it over an entire season, right? Because it wasn't like Jimmy G was without criticism this season. There's plenty of times where people were like, oh, maybe Trey Lance should step in and start. So I think that Trey Lance is a huge upside guy, and you just kind of hope that he starts to develop as, you need to get rid of Jimmy G. I don't know, man. Jimmy G is just a weird quarterback to me because he wins games, but he just doesn't impress me that much at all. And I've never been like super high on him. I think that with the Shanahan offense, like having a guy like Deebo Samuel is more important than having a guy like Jimmy G.
So it's funny, we were talking about coaches. I opened up Twitter to go see how the views are going for our show, and the first tweet that pops up is fire McCarthy and Kellen Moore at the start of the fourth quarter. So I mean, it's like Cowboys don't like him. Let him go somewhere. He's a great coach.
Yeah.
But getting off since we're on this game, is Mike McCarthy seems like it's the same old every year.
Yeah, that hire was a head scratcher in my opinion. Like you bring in a guy that was the reason that the Packers didn't win more Super Bowls, right? He won one with them, but he year in, year out with Aaron Rodgers was the thing that was holding their team back was Mike McCarthy. And it's just, I don't get why they brought him in the first place. Like I understand firing, Garrett, but of all the people you could have brought in, you brought in a guy who's proven to be like a mediocre head coach, and they fell into the trap that we were talking exactly what we're talking about, right? Like you see Jerry Jones sees the Super Bowl on his resume and goes like, oh, good coach. No, that's misleading. I see the Super Bowl on his resume and go, "Ooh, coached Aaron Rodgers for like 15 years or however long he was a coach."
Agreed.
So,
But this game's over.
yeah,
Feels like this game's over.
Cowboys just had to punt again. There's 4 minutes left in the third. Their offense is dead in the water. They showed the replay. I'm watching it too now. They showed the replay. There was a bunch of receivers open, and Dak Prescott just didn't throw to them. So,
Nope.
And that's another thing. Like I said, that's one thing or one reason that I'm kind of high on Kellen Moore is you look at that play, and he schemed it well. Like there was a bunch of people that got open. You can't do anything about Dak deciding to pull it and running for it and not getting the first down in that case. So,
Agreed.
I don't know. Do you know? All right, this is a random question. You probably don't, but do you know how much longer Jimmy Garoppolo is under contract for?
I mean, I can find out.
Yeah, because I was wondering, like, if Trey Lance had to take over next year, or was it the year after? So he's under contract till 2020 for the 2022 season. So he's an unrestricted free agent next year. So I don't think that's the worst situation. You have Trey Lance sitting and he can sit another year then. And if Jimmy G plays well enough, then you can keep him. And then, or if you think Trey Lance is ready to take over next year, right, you can trade Jimmy G to a team that might need a quarterback. I don't know how high the market is for him. And but that's what I've been saying the Vikings should do with Kirk Cousins, right? Kirk Cousins is probably going to have more of a market than Jimmy G because he's a better quarterback than Jimmy G. But
is he though?
I think for sure he is. I think,
but bold take. One's been to a Super Bowl. Jimmy G has been to a Super Bowl.
That's true, but Kirk Cousins also never had the number one defense in the league.
True.
And an elite offensive line. Like, I don't know. I think that Kirk Cousins is, like, on paper is a better quarterback. The only thing that would muddle the trade value a little bit is his contract is bigger than Jimmy G's. Like, if you're trading for Kirk Cousins, you're trading for Kirk Cousins and an extension for Kirk Cousins to, like, kind of spread out the cap hit. So we'll see. But I mean, I don't know. So I think you can have Trey Lance sit for another year. Obviously, they don't need him right now. And you look at I kind of liked what they did with him earlier this year, where they were rotating him in on like certain packages and giving him like a little bit of game experience. They would do like goal line plays and stuff with him. But it is kind of weird that it's almost like Jordan Love. Right. I don't get mad at me and say like, oh, I'm saying Jimmy G is like Aaron Rodgers, but it's same thing where they have a quarterback for the next couple of years and their guy they drafted in the first round gets to sit and just learn for a bit. And that's a pretty good luxury. So later tonight we have the Steelers-Chiefs game. What are you looking forward to with this one?
It's not even going to be a fun game. Honestly, I think the Chiefs win, I think the Chiefs win pretty much like they did last time. Honestly, I don't think there's anything to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, as sad as it is, as someone who wants to talk about the NFL and like potential games, I agree. I think that there's just nothing interesting. And like, it's the most defeated I've ever seen a team going into a playoff game, right? They were one tie away from not even making it to the playoffs. And then they came out and like Big Ben said like, oh, I'm playing my last game today. And I think Najee Harris was the only person that was interviewed that like wasn't just like straight up, oh, we're going to lose. He just said something along the lines of like, oh, I don't pay attention to that noise. But like TJ Watt was like, oh yeah, we're like 14-point underdogs and all that. Big Ben was like, oh, whatever, we're going to lose. So it's just kind of funny seeing a team already given up. So Spencer asked, overall, what grade would you give to the Bama players to the NFL this year? So there's a lot of Bama players in the league. I'll just go off of rookies that I can think of, like off the top of my head. So I think Mac was the best rookie quarterback in my mind, which is pretty impressive because I did not think he was going to be as solid as he was. He took his team to the playoffs in his first year, and I think he played pretty well.
I agree.
Christian Barmore, also on the Patriots. I'm just going by teams right now, I guess. Christian Barmore was also the best rookie like defensive tackle in the league. He kind of impressed. I didn't think he was going to be as good as he was. I saw him getting a lot of first round grades. He went like early second. I was like, I don't know, maybe, but he played really well until he got hurt going into the final like playoff game, right? And then
what about Najee?
Najee was setting Steelers records, right? He broke Franco Harris's record for rushing yards. Yeah, he had an extra week, but still, that's super promising for a storied franchise like the Steelers.
Yes,
they've had some good players. And then the two receivers, Jalen Waddle. I mean, he set the all-time record for most catches in a season by a rookie.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and then Devontae wasn't too shabby himself either. I mean, both of them are probably a little overshadowed by Jamar Chase, but I think they both had great years. And Devontae kind of proved the haters wrong. He immediately stepped in to be their number one receiver.
Yep.
And they were all like, oh, he's too small or whatever, and kind of proved that he wasn't. And then, let's see, who else? I think Alex Leatherwood was probably the most disappointing. He was kind of bad for the Raiders.
He was.
I was very confused why they picked him where they did. So going into the draft, I mean, I like I said, I liken everything to Vikings. My mind is just the encyclopedia of Vikings things. But we traded back, and then the Raiders were in front of us, and they picked an offensive tackle. And we traded back because we wanted Christian Darrisaw, and we thought we could get him later. And then they picked Alex Leatherwood instead of Christian Darrisaw. And Darrisaw was very solid as a rookie, right? He wasn't the best or even the second best because Penny Sewell and Rashawn Slater were monsters. But Darrisaw was really solid, and I think Alex Leatherwood had kind of a rough go. Who else? Landon Dickerson. I know they played him at guard a little bit for the Eagles. I wasn't sure exactly how he did this year, but I know he was in there.
I mean, coming out of an injury especially, he was good.
Yeah, he was a starter, though, which was
He was.
good.
I wish they had started him at center, though, because I think that's his best position.
Yeah, but they have Jason Kelsey. It's hard to move Jason Kelsey.
True.
And then, who am I forgetting? Who else did we have that was big? Oh, Pat Surtain was a monster for the Broncos.
Yeah, he was really good. One of the very few good points for Dallas this year.
Or no, he was on the Broncos.
I'm sorry for Denver, not Dallas. Get him a little mixed up. But
I mean, cornerback with the Alabama for a D team. I got you. And then, is there anyone else we're forgetting?
There's somebody can't think who it is. There's somebody it's in the back of my mind.
But yeah, I think they played overall pretty solid, except Alex Leatherwood, who kind of disappointed in my mind.
Yeah, definitely.
So
definitely not impressed with him.
So then we have one game left, right? We have the Rams Cardinals Monday night. What do you think is going to happen? Yeah, that sadly I'm working tomorrow night. I'm doing closing. So I'll be busy during most of the game.
I think it's gonna be a defensive game. I think the Rams win by 3.
Think so?
I don't think Matt Stafford's a playoff quarterback, but I think the Rams win by 3.
Well, I remember seeing an interesting stat that was Aaron Donald always has the worst games of his career against the Cardinals for some reason.
That's true.
And I mean, they split the series 1-1 this year, right? I believe.
Yep.
So I think this is definitely the best first round matchup in my opinion. This is the one that I think that's why they put it on Monday night. But the question to me is Matt Stafford, right? He's been throwing a lot of interceptions. He's been having a lot of 2 touchdown, 2 interception games. He's been going basically 1-to-1 with touchdowns and interceptions, which is not great, especially when you're brought in as the guy that's supposed to solve all the problems. Side note, I will say that their previous quarterback is why I don't value making it to the quarterback or making it to the Super Bowl as a quarterback that highly, because Jared Goff made it to the Super Bowl and he's kind of buns.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't know. What about Kyler Murray? He started off super hot. Friend of the show, friend of Super Draft Pro. He started off super hot, and then kind of really cooled down as the year went on after he got hurt. Really.
He goes up against pretty good defenses, and I think he did kind of have one of those fluky starts where he looked really good and didn't end up closing it, or didn't end up playing good in the end. But I think he's better than Lamar Jackson and Dak, honestly.
It's wild to me how good that division is, right? Because it
is.
The Cardinals were the last undefeated team in the league, right? They got to 9-0 or something, or 10-0,
mm-hmm.
And they're a wild card team. They didn't even win their division. The Rams won their division over them, and then you have the Seahawks, and then the 49ers, who are also in the playoffs. The Seahawks aren't, so they had 3 teams in the playoffs.
Yep. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And I remember, too, because the 49ers started off slow. The Rams were kind of like not as dominant as everyone thought. Everyone was like, oh, maybe the NFC West is overrated. Nope. Best division in football, in my opinion.
They're fixing to be 1-0 in the playoffs.
Unfortunately, they can't go 3-0 because, they're playing each other.
Unfortunately not. But, I mean, what a division.
I know. But, I mean, that's all I have, unless you have any more points you want to make real quick for tonight.
Any bold predictions for the divisional games?
Bold prediction? Oh, for like the next round?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. It is the divisional thing. I put the wrong title on. I'm just now realizing I said this is the divisional week. Whatever. Who cares? Bold predictions. I think the Packers lose. That's not that bold because you said it, but I think the Packers lose. And I think the Bengals-Titans is going to be a closer game than people think. I still think the Titans win. But I think that it's going to be, a nail-biter of a game.
You think whoever the Packers play, they lose?
Yeah. I guess – no, I guess I lied. I think if they play the 49ers, they'll win. But any other team,
Agreed.
I think they lose.
Even the Rams?
Yes. Oh, I think 100% they lose against the Rams.
Agreed.
And then – so I think if the 49ers hold out, then going into the championship round, it'll probably be Packers – Rams, in my opinion, and then AFC Championship will probably be Titans, Bills.
Agreed.
All right.
Agreed.
But yeah, that's all
I
have.
got.
So yeah, thanks for joining us tonight, and be sure to catch.
Right, we'll see y'all Thursday night for Bama Brigade.
Yeah, and I won't be here actually. It'll be you and Joe. No, I'm working.
All right.
So. See we had a Joe-less episode tonight. We'll have a Tyler-less episode Thursday. So catch y'all then.
All right. So we'll see y'all next.